Hey guys, and welcome to 360 Core. Today we'll be working all the way around your midsection with 15 different exercises. I'll be showing modifications throughout to make the movements easier or more difficult. Let's get started. Okay, so first thing we're going to add is a windshield wiper. I'm doing more of a modified version of this exercise with the bent knee. But as you can see, you can do a straight leg version to more intensify the resistance. You can also do an even more bent leg and place your arms wherever it feels comfortable and you feel like you can stay stable through the upper body. Try to keep those shoulder blades on the floor. Keep the upper body as stable as you can and exhale as you're bringing the legs back to center. Next exercise is a side crunch. Take your legs slightly forward on an angle, hand behind the head. You can also do a long lever, like I'm doing, reaching the hand back behind your head. To modify this movement, don't add the leg lift. Try to keep your neck neutral, your ear toward the ceiling, and not pulling up with your neck. The bottom elbow or hand can be used for leverage to help you lift. The third exercise is a plank with a knee in. For modifications, you can always hold a plank. Tuck your pelvis. Make sure your wrists are directly under your shoulders with a slight bend in the elbow, and bring the knee as close to the same elbow as you can without losing that pelvic alignment. If you start to feel too much in your low back, flatten the back by pulling the abdominals in tight and tilting the pelvis. But make sure you're not holding your breath while bracing the abs. Now we'll do a side crunch on the other side. So flip to the other side, taking the legs forward about 30 to 45 degrees, using the elbow or the bottom hand for leverage, and keeping that neck neutral. Remember, you can keep that hand behind the head or reaching it back behind your head for more resistance. There's always the option to keep those legs down and just lift through the upper body. You can also advance this move by adding the weight of a light dumbbell. Our next exercise is called the Skydiver. You'll lay face down with your hands out to the side, knees bent, and you'll lift and lower the upper and lower body at the same time. To modify this movement, you can lift one leg at a time as you lift the upper body, or keep the feet down. This movement is really great for strengthening the posterior muscles of the low back, glutes, upper back, and shoulders. But only go as high as you feel comfortable. And again, it's important to keep your neck in neutral alignment, looking at the floor the whole time. Now it's time to flip over for a crunch hold with an alternating leg drop. Have the arms straight up and over your chest and drop one leg at a time, bringing it as close to the floor as you can without your back arching off the mat. To modify this movement, you can hold the knees at 90 degrees, dropping one heel to the floor at a time, and keeping the hands behind the head to keep the neck supported. To advance this movement, you can hold a weight in the hands and drop both legs at the same time. But make sure that that back stays neutral and your abs stay braced. Try to keep the height of your shoulders off the floor by bracing those abs tight, and don't hold your breath during the movement. Next, we'll be moving back to that side lying position for a modified side plank with a leg lift. This exercise can be performed on the elbow or the hand with the knee on the floor or the legs staggered. To modify this move, you can keep both knees bent, and if you like, you can take that top arm and put the hand on the floor to give that bottom shoulder a little bit more support. Just keep the hip lifted as high as you can throughout the movement. Turn face down and we'll go to an elbow plank, climbing up to the hands and lifting the hand, going down to the elbows and back up. Make sure you alternate sides on this and keep your pelvis tucked. To modify this movement, simply keep the knees on the floor and stay in a modified plank. Do your best to minimize hip swaying side to side. Although there will be some, try to minimize it by keeping the abs braced. Now we'll be doing that side plank with the leg raise on the other side. So flip to your other side, positioning yourself on the elbow or hand with the bottom knee on the floor or the legs extended. Remember, you can do the modification for this movement by just putting both knees down on the floor with your hips raised, or you can take that top hand down to support that bottom shoulder. Also think about turning your toe downward toward the floor and leading more with the heel so you don't favor the hip flexor and you use the hip instead. Now we'll be moving to hands and knees position for a lateral bird dog move. You'll be reaching one arm and the opposite leg away from the center line of the body, alternating sides. Feel free to add a hand weight or an ankle weight to make this move more advanced. You may feel a little wobbly doing this exercise, but that's okay. It's meant to challenge your core muscles. Just do your best and reach as far away from your midline as you can. Now flip onto your back for a reverse curl with a hip pivot. Laying on your back, taking your arms out to the side, lift your legs about 90 degrees, and as you curl your pelvis in, tilt that pelvis in toward the bottom rib, pivoting the hip. It's okay if the movement feels small, just do the best you can. One thing to keep in mind is try not to swing the legs to lift the pelvis. Think about pulling the abs in and the pelvis will naturally lift. Now roll over face down, and we'll be doing a reverse butterfly and a back extension. So as you lift the upper body, you'll take the arms up and over in an arcing motion. Keep the neck neutral and in line with your spine, and avoid looking up with your chin. To modify this movement, you can lift one arm at a time or not lift as high with the upper back off the floor. To advance this movement, you can increase the range of motion by lifting the chest higher off the floor or using light hand weights. Okay, now flip back onto your back and we'll go to a bicycle crunch. Take the hands behind the head, extend the legs out, and take the shoulder to the opposite knee. Try to lead with the shoulder as opposed to the elbow so you get across the midline of your body. To modify this movement, tap the heel to the floor between each rep. Focus on getting as much height with that upper back as you can and really turning the shoulders to use the obliques. Reach that heel all the way out and get as close to the floor as you can. And now for our final movement. Flip over into a hand-knee position, lift the knees off the floor about an inch, walk out to a full plank, and walk back into bear. Getting those knees as close to the floor without touching as you can, and keeping that pelvis neutral and your abs braced. To modify the movement, simply drop the knees down and go back to plank. Feel free to do this movement on your elbows or your hands. Great job. Now it's time for a stretch. So in hands and knees, reach one hand under your body, like you're reaching for something under the bed. Turn the shoulders so you release that low back. And now bring it to center and do a little bit of cat-cow. So rounding the spine right through the mid-back, and then flattening or going to arched back, whichever feels better for you. Dropping the head and then going to flat back. So we're just releasing that back. It works so hard during this core workout. Now have a seat and we'll release the hips. The hips do a lot during core exercises. So have one leg in front of the other. Just make sure they're not crossed on top of each other. Lifting through the chest and keeping that back straight. Reach as far forward as you can, taking the knees out to the side. Try to relax those hips. Now bring yourself up, uncross your legs, and recross with the other leg in front. Remember not to have the leg on top of the other leg. One leg may be tighter than the other, and that's perfectly fine. Just do the best you can and try to relax. Bring both knees up and turn toward one leg, putting the opposite hand on the thigh. Lift up through the spine, putting gentle pressure on that thigh. Now go the other way. Thank you so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this workout, give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing. Have a great day. You did fantastic.